Good morning. Welcome to the XM.com weekly market update. And we're joined again by Pete McGuire, the CEO of XM. Morning, Pete.
Good morning, Andrew.
We'll get straight into this. The markets have been interesting the last week or so. Plenty of data, but it's like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's look at the unemployment rate in Australia came out. It went up slightly, but even at 3.7%, it's still a very strong labour market.
Absolutely, and it has been, and that's been demonstrated for a decade long. So, it's had a little bit of a bounce. And you've got to understand from that end of Christmas period what we've seen. So it's all, I think, fair. And if you want a job, as we keep on saying, you'll get a job. You certainly need a job if you want to eat much in Australia, because it costs a hell of a lot more than it did a couple of years back.
Well, that's right. The inflation rate is the incentive to get out there and work.
Yeah, to eat.
Very much. Speaking of that, New Zealand, they've got their rate decision this week. Now, the market is anticipating another 50-point basis rise, which wouldn't be unexpected. No. I guess the only unknown factor with the cyclone that's been there in the last week or so, and it's obviously caused a huge amount of damage.
Yeah, natural disasters.
Yeah, would that maybe make the central bank maybe think of
They could err on the side of 25. There's every chance. They've been out of the blocks. They've been startling the Kiwi central bank. So it could well do that, Andrew, from I think from a national perspective.
Yeah.
Cyclones hit certain regions. New Zealand's a lot smaller than Australia size-wise, geographically, but yeah, it could impact certainly the forward positioning of the economy.
Yeah, and that on the left-hand chart there, the ANZ Business Confidence, obviously it's quite a low number, even though it has improved. It is still deeply in the negative.
Yes, absolutely. That's frightening, isn't it?
Bank of Japan, talk about the yield curve, their target band. I guess the main story out of Japan at the moment is obviously the new governor coming in April, I believe, and also just how the yen's travelling.
Absolutely, and the new governor tipped. He's been mentioned as that was from Larry Summers. He's an MIT PhD, and I think the quote was, he's Japan's Ben Bernanke.
Right.
So it's going to be fascinating how the yen plays. It's back at around about, I'm just looking on the screen, about 134 and a quarter, and it's been incredibly volatile, the yen. So I think that the good days are ahead of it again, with a stronger yen possibly against a lot of those other currencies.
Yeah, you would think so. And their inflation, even though it's significantly lower than other economies, it is creeping up.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
Now the UK, as we mentioned last week, they just avoided going into a technical recession. Energy prices there, interestingly, coming down in France, Germany, etc., but creeping up in the UK.
Yeah, I can't explain that, but I can explain that on August 25, they were paying €300 a megawatt hour for as far as gas, and now you're looking at around about 50. So in that less than a 6-month window, you've gone from 300 to 50. That's been the saviour, plus warmer weather over that northern hemisphere winter has been a great saviour. Imagine if it went the other way. You'd have inflation. I'd hate to think it might be Argentina.
Speaking of inflation, so the UK, the inflation number is coming down, but it is still just over 10%, which is a big number. Interestingly, you look at the Brent crude there, it's sort of coming off quite a bit. So you would think it will come down over time, but it's got a long way to fall.
It certainly has, and I'm not sure whether you're going to see, considering the Russia situation, whether you're going to see crude come under that $60 barrel, because you've now got, I'm just looking at the screens here, Friday night that was down nearly 3%, Brent, and then it's bounced overnight. We've got President's Day, so Monday was shut in the States, but it was up 1%. You've still got Brent sitting just under $84 a barrel, and you've got a quite strong US dollar. So I don't know whether we're going to see that continued softness, and that's what we want to see, softer crude energy prices.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's going to bring the inflation down right across
100%.
the board. So, yeah. The US, so we had the inflation number out last week, came in at 6.4%, so it did drop only a tiny amount. But the markets, particularly the equity markets, were probably hoping closer to 6%, but they pretty much took it in their stride. And I think, once again, that expectation is it's not going to be just heading south. There's going to be a few bumps along the way throughout the next sort of 6 months, 6 to 9 months. But the markets, they're sort of hanging in there at the moment on the equity side of things.
Yeah, certainly are. And you've got Fed Chair Powell coming out, I think, Wednesday with his minutes from the latest FOMC meeting. So what the rhetoric's going to be, and will we see a pullback from a rate perspective later in the year, or is that going to be now pushed into 24, or is it only a dream?
Yeah, well, the bond markets will tell us that probably in 3 or 4 months' time, I suspect. As we get mid-year, the bond markets are a pretty good predictor of what's going on.
They certainly are.
Yeah. And finally, once again, US retail sales came in at over 3%. The market was anticipating 1.8%. The resilience of the US consumer.
Yeah, no doubt about them. And again, you've got strong employment. So it's been if that can maintain leading up to Easter or again mid-year, then that's going to be a good power play behind US equities for earnings.
Yeah, it certainly will. And that's obviously the big box retailers have come out well on the back of that.
Yeah.
Sales have been very solid in the Walmarts, the Lowe's, etc. So which is not to be, which was fairly obvious. But yeah, interesting times. Plenty of data out this week again.
Oh yeah, no shortage. I mean, we've got big numbers coming out as far as UK, Eurozone, what's happening with New Zealand and everyone else, and then the Fed, of course. So in Japan, I'm looking forward to seeing the continuation as far as big volatility in that yen.
Yeah. So plenty of happening, which is always the case. So and we'll have a chat again next week.
Look forward to it.
Excellent. Thanks, Pete.
See you, Andrew.
And that's the XM.com weekly market update.